The struggle is real today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the chaotic little book corner. My name is Acacia. Yeah. I just couldn't. I washed my face and I brushed my hair and I put on pants. And that's about the extent of my functioning today. I mean, I would give anything to be one of those YouTubers who can get up, set up lights, put together an outfit, put together their makeup, put together their hair, get everything on this, the up and up and make it look professional and perfect. But I have so much trouble. I have so much trouble. Maybe one day. All right. So today we're going to be doing my December part 2 wrap up. I have 5 books here. Not a lot. I didn't really go that much further. I think I read 10 books in the first part. So I read like 15 books over the month of December. Reading 5 books over 2 weeks is pretty low for me. But I was with family a lot and I was busy a lot, and I also was trying to relax. That was my big concern, was trying to relax. So I managed some of that, but not all of it. So we're going to go in order of least to most enjoyed. Yeah, same as always. So the first book that we have, which is the one I like the least, is The Woman Number 17 by Eden Lepecki. Let's see. I genuinely thought I was gonna like this book. It's compared to a tastes like a juice box of suburban satire laced with Alfred Hitchcock. I thought I was going to love this. What I ended up feeling was it was indulgent, self-indulgent, super privileged, and very self-obsessed. So this is the story of lady who has separated from her husband, and as a result she needs a nanny so she can keep working. She's got a child who's very young and a son from a previous relationship who's much older, who doesn't speak, and he's never spoken. It's never happened. And within the first chapter, this young girl comes in, very quirky, not what you'd expect. Doesn't really care what you think, super sassy, and maybe not the best choice for her children. But her little boy likes her, and she thinks this is a good plan. And this girl is going to live in the guest house at their home. And this takes place in the Hollywood Hills. Like, this is money. And the two of them grow closer and closer, and secrets start to divulge. If you find it interesting and want to read it, I'm not going to give you any more than that, because it's if you know more than that, it ruins the whole book. Like, honestly, the blurb, it sets you up to think there's this huge cryptic thing happening. I wasn't impressed. The setup just makes you feel like it's going to be better than it is. I really thought it was quick-paced and overindulgent and super shallow and very dull. Like, I thought it was dull. The intrigue was not that interesting. The parental existence was very limited, and the parenting skills were near non-existent, and the nanny is just not, it was all in out, like, just not a good book. I just didn't like it. I think I gave it 2 stars. The writing style was fine. And I think it's a good premise. And some people really like it, but I wasn't impressed. I was not impressed. Yeah, it didn't do anything for me. Then I read this. Now, this is not one that I didn't like. I like this a lot, but I just liked the other ones more. This is The Cuckoos Calling from Robert Galbraith. Cormoran Strike's first novel. This is where he meets Robin. In this one, there is a supermodel who falls to her death, and they're trying to decide if it's foul play or suicide. And Cormoran Strike is put on the case. He is a moody, old, crotchety, well, maybe he's not that old. You know, the more you read into the books, you realize he's not the oldest person you've ever met. Like, you don't, when I first started reading it, I thought he was like in his 60s. He's not. So it was just good. I liked it. It was solid. I've read it before, so I feel like it's been talked about before on my channel. If you're interested in hearing more about this, I have the 4th book in the series. I'll talk about all 3 of them eventually as we go, or the next 3 as we go, because I will be reading the series again to get to the 4th book. I prefer to read the whole series a second time or 3rd time. Actually, this might be the 3rd or 4th time. I think I've read this book like 3 times because I think I've read it every time a new book came out. And that goes prior to me having a booktube as well. So for me, it's the same story every time. I like it every time. I do. I think it's a good book. I think it's solid. The mystery is not perfect. It's a little contrite, but the overall story and plot is great, and I love Robin and Strike's relationship. You get more of that as the books continue, so the information that I have reading this book now is not information you have when you read the book for the first time. So I can't give you that information. Then we have Catch and Kill by Rowan Farrow, Lies, Spies, and a Conspiracy to Protect Predators. So Rowan Farrow is a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporter. And in this book, he exposes a serial abuser. And a powerhouse that is covering up this abuse. And he dives into this abuser's technique and tactics and abuse in general, and abuse of power and misogyny and all of that, and dives into the darker side of abuse and the darker side of cover-ups, and how these people have maintained this mirage of goodness for so long. This book is really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I just don't want to give all of it away, because the honest thing is about this, I went into it knowing Nothing. In fact, I thought it was about a murder when I picked it up because kill. I thought it was a serial killer book. It was not. And I was really happy with the results of what I found. It is a serial abuser, but it's different from what I was expecting. And I thought going into it blind was a better story, and a better overall excitement to it, just because I felt that the predator, if you know who they are, you can Google it and then you just sort of lose the whole point of the book. And I really thought that reading the book gave a more in-depth, worthwhile, and fuller picture of the abuse. If you're not interested in reading the book, I'm sure you could go to Goodreads, find a review that gives the name of the predator, and Google it. Although usually people who don't want to read the book are just not interested in the predator, period. That's usually how that works. But in any case, I'm sure you could find a way around reading the book if you really wanted to, but I think it's worth going into blind. Then there's this. I loved this. This was excellent. This is Mary Toft, the Rabbit Queen by Dexter Palmer. This story is apparently very popular. It's in the Book of Lore. I think it's in Wicked Mortals. I'm not sure. But it's in one of the Book of Lore by Aaron Mahnke. And it's a story that people know. I was completely unaware of this. I went into this book completely blind. I saw it on the shelves, and I was so intrigued by this cover. Ow. That hurt. That I was like, I don't know what this is. I have to pick it up. And I read the blurb. And it is the story of Zachary Walsh and John Howard, who are a surgeon and his apprentice. And there is a man, Joshua Toft, who comes to them one day and said, my wife is going to give birth. We haven't had sex. I don't know how she's pregnant. I don't know what's going on. We've had other children. 2 of our children has died. And I really don't understand how she's pregnant. She's not the type to go out and be unfaithful. So, like, why is she pregnant? So they arrive. She looks like she's in labor. She acts like she's in labor. Things just sort of seem to be moving in that direction. And so John sits down and gets ready to deliver the baby. And when she starts to scream because of the final contractions, you may not like this. This is a trigger warning for animal issues. So if you're not interested in hearing about animals being hurt, this is not a good part. She pushes out a decapitated bunny. And everyone responds by vomiting. And so there is vomit in this book. And he leaves and goes home. John leaves and goes home with his apprentice. And neither of them know what to do. And neither of them know what to say. And he tells his wife. And his wife laughs at him. She's like, that's not a thing. And then 2 days later, Joshua shows up again. And he's like, my wife is in labor again. You need to come. And this continues for 17 times. And they go and get a specialist from London, who is a terrible human, mind you. And they go and get a priest who is the father of the apprentice. And he's trying to decide whether this is an act of God or the devil. And they do medical examinations and all of this stuff on her to try and see how she is giving birth to rabbits. And then the story goes from there. I loved it. I really loved it. And I think it is super worth reading. If you're not interested in animal cruelty or vomit, don't read it. Just saying that right now. I think vegans and vegetarians might struggle with this, because it is sad, but for the animals. But I adored it. I thought it was excellent. I would highly recommend this. This was great. Then the book that I enjoyed the most out of the second half of December is Shock of the Fall by Nathan Filler, which is a total surprise to me. I read this book 2 years ago, and I gave it 3 stars, and I sold it. And then about a year ago, I thought, I don't know. There was something to it I liked, and I've thought about it a couple of times, so I bought it again. And it just sat there for like 6 or 8 months. And I assumed that I would probably either end up selling it again, or I would get to it eventually and it would be another 3-star read and I'd keep it because it was something that just struck me and I didn't want to have to buy it a third time. But like, I was not in the headspace to believe that this was going to go well. And I loved it. And I gave it 5 stars. And I thought it was incredible. I actually ordered this author's other book on schizophrenia. And that's coming from the UK. It's a nonfiction. I'm very interested in it. So the first time I read this, I was confused. I was frustrated. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know where the narrator was speaking from, why the narrator was going through these things that they were going through, what the narrator was telling us and what was real and what was fake. I had no idea. Everything just felt really confusing and overwhelming. It felt like me in a bad headspace. That's what it read like. It read like me in a bad headspace. And not my, probably in my worst headspace. The worst I've ever been, it read like that. That was how the brain worked. And that was really frustrating because I don't like being in that headspace and I don't like feeling that way. And so here I was reading this book, feeling completely frustrated and angry, and I didn't like it. So I read it a second time, knowing the facts of the characters and understanding the story and plot and where the character is coming from. And it changed the whole dynamic. It changed the whole thing. So I will tell you, and okay, this is gonna be a spoiler, I guess. So if you're not interested in knowing where the narrator is writing from, go away. It doesn't really ruin the book. It changes the dynamic of what you know. So the narrator suffers from a mental illness and is in a mental hospital. You can come back now. Come back. So they're writing from there. And it changes the entire story. It makes the entire thing make more sense. It makes the entire thing seem more logical. It makes everything feel better. It's just so much better. It makes so much more sense. So the premise of this book is, while on vacation, Matthew and his older brother sneak out in the middle of the night, and Matthew comes back while his brother does not. And so his brother had a illness that affected his body and made him weaker. And you know that Matthew blames himself for his brother not coming back. And you know that his parents kind of blame him for his brother not coming back. But something happened that changed the perspective of Matthew. And now his parents have taken him out of school and they're constantly checking on him and they're constantly doing things with the doctor and trying to make sure he's okay and everything. Nobody really talks about the dead brother. Nobody really mentions him. Everyone just kind of lets it go. And as a result, Matthew comes to the decision that he can bring his brother back. And that's where things start to get weird. It's excellent. I absolutely loved it, and I would highly recommend it. Yeah, it was wonderful. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, click that subscribe button down below. That was a word, yeah. I post videos every Tuesday and Thursday. I post on my blog every Wednesday and Friday. Wednesdays is books, Fridays is beauty. I have all of my links down in the description, including my Patreon. If you would like to join my Patreon book club, it is only $1. We are reading Long Bright River, and that's our book for the month. It comes out on January 7th, so if you would like to join, there is still time. Yeah. And I will talk to you in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.